Hey everybody, it's Polly Simpkins here. Thank you so much for joining. This is so exciting and I love seeing everybody. Just really quickly before we get started, I wanted to thank my colleagues at MVY Radio. Everybody's been so supportive of this new project, especially PJ Finn, who helped get it off the ground. So thank you to PJ. Thank you to Joe, my tech support here tonight. We're kind of feeling our way. This is new for us, so thank you for being here. This is really about you guys, and I want to thank you most of all for being here. If you were here last week, you kind of know the drill. If you're just new and just joining, thank you for being here. We're trying to create a community around music, and these books are just starting points and ways of kind of getting conversation started. I have interviewed one of the editors of this book, Lou Reed's The Art of Straight Line, Scott Richmond, who should be joining us tonight. He's scheduled to be on a little bit later. And the way it worked last week and the way it will work this week, the structure of the night is I have put together a video. Thank you to my son for helping me edit it. Just if people haven't read the book yet or are unfamiliar with Lou Reed, it's just a little background about Lou, his music, and then a couple clips about 10 minutes long of my interview with Scott. And then after that, we'll just jump into discussion and, Lou Reed, some love him, some don't. And it's all about books and music are all about your perspective and how you feel. Music is super personal. So I hope you'll just take it in, maybe learn something new and feel like you want to contribute. Great. If not, you can have your cameras off or on. This is all very kind of chill. So and Joe, we were asking everybody where everyone's listening from.
Yeah, so I started kind of like writing it down. I want to say hi to everyone. We have folks from Florida, from Rochester, Massachusetts, Duxbury, Brewster, Portsmouth, Rhode Island. You just all kind of spread out across the country, and nice
Awesome.
to see everyone. And feel free if you want to in the chat, let us know where you're zooming in from. We'd love to hear where you're zooming in from.
Yeah, and also if you didn't get a chance to give us your email last week and you'd like to be on the email list, please, I kind of send out emails just, right before as a reminder and right after, just kind of touching in. So if anybody wants to be on the list, just give us your email and we will, get you on the list. So I also wanted to thank Aurora, by the way, because this afternoon, she was filling in for Allison and she played for her live acoustic and covers. She played Lou Reed and I had never heard Pale Blue Eyes by the REM cover. So thanks to Aurora for that. And without further ado, if you're just joining and if you guys are just joining in, we're talking about the structure. We're going to watch a little bit of a video that I put together about Lou Reed for those of you who might be unfamiliar or didn't read the book. And then some interviews, clips with Scott Richmond, one of the editors, and then just discussion, just hang out. Enjoy.
Louis Allen Reed was a groundbreaking musician, creative visionary, and performance artist. He burst onto the New York art scene as guitarist, singer, and principal songwriter for the Velvet Underground, and went on to command a solo career that spanned 5 decades. Reed's distinctive and sometimes controversial life, poetic and transgressive lyrics, and experimental guitar playing were trademarks throughout his long career. Born on March 2, 1942 at Beth El Hospital in Brooklyn, Lou grew up in Freeport, Long Island with parents Toby and Sydney and beloved sister Meryl, who was an influential figure in his life. He studied poetry at Syracuse University, where he was a college radio DJ. After graduation, he went to work for Pickwick Records in New York City as a session musician, where he met John Cale. Together with Sterling Morrison and Angus MacLeese, in 1965, they became the Velvet Underground. Reed quit the band in 1970, and although they were never commercially successful, the Velvets have become one of the most influential bands in the history of underground and alternative rock music. A regular at CBGB's and similar New York City venues in the 70s, Lou became an important player in the new music scene and would go on to release 20 studio albums, His second, Transformer, was released in 1972 and produced by David Bowie, which brought him mainstream recognition. For years after, Reed continued to create incredible music. His work lacked commercial success, but in the early 1980s, Lou gradually returned to prominence with the Blue Mass and New Sensations, reaching a critical and commercial career peak in 1989 with his 15th solo album, New York, marking a pivotal move for him to Sire Records. In the 1990s, Lou Reed and avant-garde artist Laurie Anderson began collaborating professionally, eventually became romantically and spiritually involved. They married in 2008. Lou underwent a liver transplant at the Cleveland Clinic in May of 2013, and 5 months later he died at his home in East Hampton, New York, at the age of 71. Lou was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame after his death by longtime friend and fellow musical icon Patti Smith on April 18, 2015. Lou began practicing Tai Chi in the 80s and continued until the very last day of his life. In his later years, he began writing what would become The Art of the Straight Line, My Tai Chi. The book was completed after his death by editors Laurie Anderson, Stephen Berwick, Bob Curie, and Scott Richmond, bringing Lou's spirit alive once again. Along with his own words and artwork, the book includes over 100 interviews with Lou's friends, fellow practitioners, musicians, and artists. I had a chance to sit down with one of the book's editors, Scott Richmond, to talk about his relationship with Lou, both as a fan and friend, and the force of nature that was and continues to be Lou Reed. Hey, Scott.
Hi, how are you, Polly? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for the book group, and I'm so excited. I can't tell you what a celebration this book is. It's such an unexpected gift to have Lou Reed back in our lives in this way, and you guys have all just brought him to life, and it's really been a pleasure. So thanks for being here with me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I thought maybe we could start kind of with, as many know, Lou Reed came here to Martha's Vineyard in 1997. Barbara Dacey here at MVYRADIO interviewed him, and he played at the Hot Tin Roof that night, and we have photos from it and stuff. And the Velvets came in 1969, and in the interview with Barbara Dacey, he couldn't remember if he had been here before, but in fact, he has been here twice. And you know, he's always been a big part of our rotation, and me personally, huge fan, and I know you are too, and that's how things started out for you. So even though you've chronicled it in the book, I thought maybe we'd start by just letting us know about how you came to be friends and how Lou came into your life.
That's a great question. So, like most young people, I was in my late teens, and I discovered Lou through my older brother, which is how a lot of music was discovered back in the late 70s, early 80s. Before the internet, before social media, it was the influencer in your life was your older sibling or cousin. Anyway, he and I bought a few Lou Reed records at the local mall. There was vinyl at that time, and the first one was Rock and Roll Animal. And then I loved that so much that I went and bought his new record at the time was New Sensations. And I say this in the book, I couldn't believe that these were the same artists. Like, this was the same person. The voice, the subject matter was similar, but just everything about it was different. And I was really just enthralled by that. I loved that, just that voice, that those lyrics, those ideas he was putting out there. And you know, when you're in your late teens and I'm ready to go to college, you're so impressionable, and it really helps you form. And, you know, that music definitely helped me find my voice, I think, and what I was interested in and what I liked. And I like writing. And it helped me kind of solidify that. So anyway, that's 1984. And then I met him in 1986 for the first time in New York. When Mistrial came out, I met him. And I made a comment to him at that, like it was a record event of some sort. I said, hey, you know, the guitar work on this song, Video Violence, is very similar. Because at this point, I was knee deep into Lou and the Velvets. It reminded me of the song, I Heard Her Call My Name from the second record, White Light, White Heat.
Mm.
And he said, wow, that's interesting that you thought that. It is a similar concept. It was, I was trying to channel Albert Eiler, Ornette Coleman, using guitars versus using a saxophone, using guitars and creating that sound, that sound of atonality and of, free jazz, but free jazz with a guitar. So that concept was something that was really strong in his music. And he was pleased that I remember that I brought that up. Anyway, met him a couple of years later at the Grammys. When I was finishing up college, I was an intern at the Recording Industry Association of America, the RIAA, the folks that
Yeah.
certify records. And I met him at the Grammys, he and Sylvia, and I just talked to him for about 10 minutes, told him what I was doing, and I mentioned to him, I said, hey, I read that you're doing a record with John Cale on behalf of Andy Warhol. He goes, wow, how did you know that? And I go, well, I read it. He goes, yeah, we haven't talked about that yet. This is just when New York was coming out.
This is Songs for Drella. You had the inside scoop.
I don't know why I knew. I read it somewhere, so he didn't know what I had read, but clearly his label had started to promote it and or at least leaked it. But he was really, at that point, he had moved over to Sire from RCA and was working on New York. And I don't think New York I think it may have just released at that time. Geez, I'm trying to remember. Was it 89? No, if it was 89 that it was released.
Yeah. For Drella was 90, so it was probably between there.
Right, but I met him in like March or February of 88.
Oh, I see.
Anyway, so that if the timeline's correct. Anyway, we just talked, and it was just a really nice interaction. And then fast forward, 12 years, 13 years later, I'm in the music business at this point. I had worked at RCA, Arista, BMG, and then I had moved on to AOL Music in 2001. And we had a huge audience. This is when AOL was the thing. We had a big audience. And I said, well, me and my colleagues, all my friends, we were starting to bring artists that we loved to our platform. Wow. And I said, I need to bring Lou here. He has a new record coming out called The Raven. I read about that. I'd love to. And they go for it. So I literally sat down. I reached out to a couple of people that knew Lou, and I said, I'd like to meet with him. I think I can help him. He wrote me back a day later, said, who are you? What do you want what do you want to know about me? I explained who I was, where I worked. He then said, okay, let's grab lunch. And we met probably a week later in New York at Pastis, which is a place in the West Village.
Oh, right.
And we spent 3.5 hours together just talking. And, he was so open, and he knew when he met me that I knew my stuff, but also I was a fan, but I was also, somehow he knew that I was to be trusted. Like, he knew that if he was going to share stuff with me, I was going to give him an honest answer, but I was also going to be, I wasn't going to exploit the relationship, if you will. Because I think a lot of people that have come across in his world, he had a lot of challenges with label people and with management over the years. And I think he had developed a fairly good BS. Can I curse?
Yeah.
BS? Okay, bullshit detector. And he knew that I was for real. So we met, and then he called me the next day and he said, hey, will you help me with this? And so it just started that way. And he just brought me in, and the next 11 years of his life until he passed, we were very close and friends, and he got me into Tai Chi, and that's I guess how I came to be involved with the book. We were delighted in all of these interviews. I don't think there was one interview that we didn't feel added something to the story. So and that's why I think the book is so special, because I think that it's very personal.
So personal, and it must have brought each of you, it's such a strong energy, and I'm wondering, in that process, it must have felt so soothing and nice to kind of reinvoke his spirit through these conversations and just be with him in a different way.
Yeah, no, what a great point, Polly. It is, hearing his voice on some of these, like we recorded each other a lot when we talked about Tai Chi, when we were doing all these different projects back in the mid '00s. Hearing his voice and hearing people talk about their interaction with him not only did create a closer relationship, but it reminded me of how physical a relationship I had with him and others had with him. Because when you study martial arts with somebody and you're kind of, sparring, or you're practicing and he's teaching and he's saying, all right, you hold your hand like this. Now I'm showing this as audio, but it's a very physical kind of relationship in a way where you never forget that. You never forget that the mind, body, memory, if you will. I don't know if that's correct, but
Yes.
and I think that I'm a little regretful that I didn't bring more of that thought to the book, because I think that's, it's a physical thing. Like the people I studied with, like Lou and Tony and just Master N and others, it was just very, like, I remember their hands. And Lori brings it up a lot. She brings up hands, like the rock and roll hands, the guitar hands that Lou had. And it's just kind of getting into that mind of thinking that way. It just does create a very intimate portrait of a person, but also of your relationship.
And she talks about, actually, I was reading about at the end when she says he died on a Sunday morning looking at the trees and doing the famous 21 form of Tai Chi with just his musician hands moving through the air. And I just thought that's so beautiful. I mean, that's such a gorgeous, I could just see him, beautiful.
Incredible. It's what a way to go
What a way to go. For people who may not have read the book, who are listening or watching. I wanted to start with Tony Visconti, of course. And he talked first of all, one of my favorite quotes from the book is yours. Everyone's straight line is different. Mm-hmm. And I think it's such a beautiful articulation of what this book is, because although there's this practice, there's still this wonderful freedom in it. And everybody's able to be who they are. And it wasn't that what his music was all about anyway, So I love that. So thank you for that quote. But one thing Tony said is Chi does not travel through a tense body. And he talked about the 3 benefits: health, meditation, and self-defense. And just, you read so much about Lou Reed and the tension a lot of times that he had, when he was here on the Vineyard. He performed at the Hot Tin Roof and got upset because, he had talked earlier in the day about wanting to play from his heart. He was doing some acoustic stuff at the time. And I guess I have friends who went to the show that night and there were too many people. It was a small venue. They were crowding him and he was, and he erupted and like he did many times, as I'm sure you're well aware. And so I'm wondering if you could speak to what Tony talks about with Chi not traveling through a tense body. And as I learn more about it, I'm wondering, was that what he was working toward, is help when he would get stuck with that energy or that angst? Would Tai Chi help him flow and release so he could, energetically be more smooth in his life? Like, is that what he was trying to work toward, do you think? Or anybody?
I can only speak for myself and kind of what relate to Tony's quote, in the sense of, right, your mind and your body is relaxed, and that's kind of to help you release the Chi and find the Chi. That's the way to do it. But a tense body is a much, you're creating blockages for that to happen. But for Lou, one of the interesting things that Lori brought up was that Lou started, he had this side of him that where he would have anger, he would be angry. But as he kind of worked through all of that, the anger and the resolution would oftentimes meet right at the same time. So you wouldn't even necessarily see that he had worked toward that. Did Tai Chi help him and meditation help him to kind of resolve this? I would think so, but I don't think he never said that to me. But Tony's point is really spot on, in the sense of, that's what's so special about this martial art. It's almost like a gift to yourself and to your body and to your mind, to kind of like take a vacation. And I think Lou enjoyed that. I know he did. I don't think that, I know he did. I saw him and he encouraged me to enjoy it too. And I think that's why I think it's such a special book, because we're talking about somebody who found this incredible kind of art, you know, to help them become healthier, clearer, more well balanced, to find their energy.
Awesome. Thanks for watching that, everybody. Hopefully it gave you a little extra insight into my interview with Scott Richmond, who actually just joined. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Really good. Thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so we just watched a little bit of a video and little background, and just gonna open it up. Like we did last time, you guys, if you want to ask a question or a comment, if you could just raise your little hand, your hand gesture, and then we can, you know, take people as they come. But I'm really just interested in what people think. You know, I know Lou Reed has a lot of you know, there's so much to say and we just have a short amount of time, but I appreciate you being here, Scott. And maybe you could start by just letting us know how the book has been for you.
Oh my. Well, it's an incredible, it was, first of all, it was an honor to have been a part of it for as long as I had been a part of it. I did some research recently, and the book dates back to 2008, when Lou and I met with our editor at the time, or publisher at the time, at Simon and Schuster. And so it's really gratifying to see that over all this time we were able to bring the book, you know, to market and to publish it. And you know, we're very proud of it. And I'm going to speak for all of my fellow editors, including Laurie Anderson, Stefan Berwick, and Bob Curry. And we marvel at the fact that we actually brought this to market. It was a lot of work. So, but very gratifying. It's been really wonderful since it was published in March.
Yeah. And as you were saying and as I was saying too, it just kind of brought Lou back for us in a different way. And I imagine it was the same for, I'm wondering how it's been for Lori, how the process has been for her.
Well, I mean, we speak a couple times a month. We still have a lot of other projects going on. And I think she, like the rest of us, just loves this project because it does it's in Lou's voice, and we hear Lou and we see Lou, and this is the person we recognize, who is our friend and our teacher, our mentor, our partner in her instance. And I think I think she really enjoys doing this type of work. I mean, she's, as you guys know, she's got her whole other thing that she does that's, you know, just incredible. Spoke to her yesterday. Yeah, spoke to her yesterday, and she was in Europe. I think she was in Milan or going to Milan for a film festival. And we were just talking about different projects we're working on around the book and different promotional things. And she's just very gratified by it, and the outpouring of love from people who don't even know Lou from a musical standpoint, but just learned about him through Tai Chi. So it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see. So anyway.
Yeah. I'm wondering if anybody here, even if you haven't read the book, any thoughts on Lou, or just, you know, what you're thinking about? Or I know some people haven't read it, which does not matter at all. I think that's one cool thing about the book is, and just coming to this book group, is you can just kind of pick up and jump in. So I know it's kind of weird to like.
Hello, I'm Pete, and I'm from Florida. And actually, I'm interested to jump in because I'd like to hear everybody else's input on something that I read there. It really was cool. And Penn Jillette on page 93 And I only read about half the book, so I'm not acting like I know the whole book, but he was talking about the discovering of well, quote him, the benefits of being able to have a sense of peace and emptiness in one's mind, to have some control over being able to see consciousness as different from thoughts and the self as different from thoughts. So, and I've been doing some personal stuff that kind of relates to that quote. And I thought, Lou, being one of course, the icon he is one of my faves. I thought it was really interesting that Penn Jillette's take on what he was trying to discover lined up with that whole thought process. And I don't know if anybody had anything they want to chime in about that, if they happen to read that particular quote. Another cool thing about Iggy Pop too, but I won't hog space. Let me hear what everybody has to say. And thanks for listening. And thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen. Peter, it's so funny. Hey Polly. It's so funny that you bring that quote up. That stood out to me too. I confess I am not a martial arts practitioner. I've never studied Tai Chi. And I also confess I have of course knew who Lou Reed was, but I didn't know a lot about him. And so this book was just really fascinating to me. Such a great way to get to know an artist and discover the music in a different way. But I felt throughout it like I really couldn't relate to the Tai Chi piece of it until I read that line. I'm a lifelong rock climber, which many of you are probably thinking, how does that relate to Tai Chi at all? But there's a similarity, and the similarity is that line. You're so focused on how your body is moving and getting the right movement, and there's sort of a grace and a dance to it, that your mind is clear. It's the only time in life where I have had my mind completely clear. I'm also an endurance athlete. When you're riding your bike, you're focused on this power number or your cadence or your bike computer or where you're going. But that rock climbing experience is very much like that line in the book. So I just find it funny that that's the line that you mentioned. It's probably the line in the book that stood out to me the most. And while I have the floor, Scott, just congratulations on the book. I mean,
Thank you.
a book is such an amazing accomplishment for anybody on any topic, but something so personal, and to have to do it as a collaboration and take such a long time to do it, I can't imagine. It's such a beautiful journey to go on and get to know someone so dear to you in such a different way. I think that's fantastic. And I love what you said about the physical experience and the physical relationship. I think, music makes you feel things differently and remember people differently. And I think that physical touch element makes you remember people differently and feel people differently. So I'm glad you've had this experience. Congratulations.
Thank you. I think that the physical side of it is just so it's at the forefront of everything when I think about him and my experiences with him, especially learning this alongside of him or being taught by him. It's so great. It's such a great, how you say, when someone passes, you're fearful that as time goes on, you keep losing your memories, and you kind of like, you're further away from that individual, but that physical aspect keeps me right there. And so, yeah, we sparred, right? We fought, we did something called push hands, and you really get to know someone on a different level when you're doing that type of practice. So yeah, it was a very unique space to kind of be in with someone else.
I wanted to say how, while I was reading the book and while I was leading up to book club, talking to people and their experiences with Lou Reed, and I was such a Velvets fan and such a Lou Reed fan. But I think, a lot of people who were younger maybe didn't know who he was, or when people hadn't heard of him. And I was, trying to give people different contexts, because he was so prolific, and to have been so relevant and so vibrant with his music for so long, I thought was so interesting. And then finding Tai Chi, and it felt like he was equally as passionate about that, which I thought was so cool. and I too was like, you know, I don't do Tai Chi. And I was intrigued by it because it does seem like something that you can do your whole life. But the, like, I guess the idea of it, that super focus, I guess, that you were talking about also in terms of rock climbing or any other sport where you can just be so completely connected, and in so many ways it felt like it sort of healed him.
Do you want my response on that?
Oh, please.
I think it definitely extended his life. I think he, when he kind of took it up in 2000, 1980, 2000, 1979, 1980, I think he was really at a crossroads in terms of, I think he had really kind of lived the life and lived it, did a lot of, this, he kind of, he beat his body up, right? And through a variety of different substances and activities. And when he found this, it was a slow start, and it was, he learned it in fits and starts. He would kind of make 5 steps, he'd go 5 steps forward and 6 steps back. And I think it's no surprise that anyone who's dealt with addiction and anyone who's dealt with that it's a process that's constant, and you're always working at it, and people, along the way, they might go backwards. But in a lot of the interviews that we had with his ex-wife Sylvia, with other people that knew him from that time frame, they really spoke so much about his strength and his commitment and his singular focus. And that to me is so inspirational, that someone not only works their way through that and comes out with this art that they're learning, but also excels at that art and becomes in many ways a master of Tai Chi, of the martial arts. And Lori said this yesterday on the phone with our eds. We had a conversation. Music was as important as Tai Chi was to him. I mean, a lot of people think that this was like the passing fancy. This is just a hobby that this rock star is interested in. Absolutely not. It was as important as his music was. And that's what I hope we expressed in this book, was this person's commitment and the work that they did to get to where they ultimately ended up. And just very proud of him, but also very inspired by him. So I'm excited to hear what everybody else has to say. So even if you didn't read it, and by the way, it's one of those books where you can read it, there's no order, right? You could just dip in anywhere and dip out, which is my favorite type of book. That's why we wrote it that way. We didn't, it's almost hard to put a structure or an outline to a book like this. And Lori really challenged all of us to kind of write this in a way, or edit this in a way, where anyone who picked it up at whatever page would get something from it. So someone said Pendulette. Someone also said, I think you said, Peter, you said Iggy Pop was one of your favorite entrance things.
Well, there's a lot going on here, man. Because full disclosure, I'm in recovery. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and I've been in recovery for about 4.5 years. And using some practices of my own, I'm not going to get into it, but and reading about Lou is just so hugely inspirational, because it just kind of validates some of the stuff that I've been trying to accomplish. And the Iggy Pop thing is relative, because relevant, I should say, because I got a buddy down in Long Island who lives in Southampton, who has been struggling for years with crack cocaine. And he he's doing okay right now. And out of pure experiential activity, he started doing breathing exercises exactly like Iggy Pop was describing. And Iggy was talking about the gong chai, or was it gong chai breathing?
The qigong.
Qigong. Yeah.
Yep.
And that Qigong breathing, and how he directs it to different parts of his body, which I thought was pretty fascinating. And that's exactly what my buddy was doing. And he's just doing this thing on, I mean, he just explained it to me the other night, like literally the night before I read it, which makes it all the cooler. But so the whole thing is kind of stitching together in that way for me. I mean, this means that this book is having a huge impact. I haven't even finished the damn thing. So which is nice. But that Iggy Pop thing, I don't know if anybody else practice any kind of that stuff. I would love to hear about it. Rika, tell me about it.
Timing is everything, right? So the timing of this book, hi, Polly, it's good to see you. The timing of this book was perfect for me. I do practice Qigong, and something that Scott mentioned earlier was in his interview, he said, it's the mind-body connection. It's the muscle has memory. I'd never considered music as an extension. And that's really what this book taught me, was like, oh, there it is. That's the breath moving. That's the energy moving. That's keeping the flow going. And what Lou's hands did was just remarkable. And the fact that he could get into a trance-like state and follow that energy throughout that song, and just, it was mind-blowing and perfect timing. That's all.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah. So glad that so glad that you said that too. The chi, finding the chi and accessing that, and the work that it takes to get to that is when you do experience some level of it. And I confess, I mean, I'm an amateur. I've been working at it for 20 years, and I'm not the best student.
It's a practice, right? It's a practice.
Exactly. And it's so true. But when you do experience that feeling, it is like nothing else. And Lou
Sensation, right? That's what you guys were talking about. It was that sensation, following that sensation from mind to body to muscle, and trusting that that energy is flowing and it's communicating on, that nonverbal level, that transcendental level, that energetic flow. It's just such a great concept. And if we could all grasp that a little bit easier, it would make recovery for everyone so much easier. A huge part of recovery.
Wow. Yeah. We say that this book was intended to be a handbook, right? And more than any, like, everyone wants to define it, right? And that's how you do things. You define it as a biography, an autobiography. Well, a handbook is another way to describe it. He just wanted to share this with people. However he could share his love of this with people, that was his intention. And so that's what we did. That's what we tried to do, was to do that. And the nice thing also about this is it's a book, and and to me, we have now put it into 300 and something pages, and it's beautiful. But to all of us, it's a starting point, right? The conversation continues with these types of conversations. I'm going to put in the chat one of our live streams that we just did on Lou Soul Day. So Lou Soul Day is 10/27, whatever year. It's the day he passed. And we celebrate his life that day, as well as on his birthday, March 2nd. Our group, the editors, but then we have a larger group called the Looniverse, believe it or not, which you're now all part of, get together, and we just we celebrate him, we celebrate his life, we celebrate these practices, we practice ourselves, we do demonstrations. You'll see it in this video, and we just to what you just said, Rika, it's amazing. Everybody's along for this journey. Everyone can relate to it. You don't have to know Lou Reed's music or Tai Chi or anything to relate to this story. And that's what we had hoped for. So I'm so happy that you said that, and I can't wait to share that with Lori and the other eds. Yeah, that's really what it's about. And so I hope we can, yeah, we're going to continue other elements of this. We just don't know what they are right now. That's the other great thing about working with someone like Lori is whatever we think is this is the path we're going to follow. Oh no, it's in a different place. And I'm so fortunate to work with someone like that. It's a gift. So, anyway, we want to share the gift. Who's the rock climber? Jen? So I live out in Montana, and I know a lot of rock climbers out here. You must be in great shape.
I try. I've never been to Montana though, so I have to add that to my list for visiting and rock climbing.
I was gonna say I don't see any rocks, but I see rocks behind you, but not ones to climb in your. But I think so the other interesting thing is the Tai Chi class. So Master Ren Guangyi, who is our teacher and who was Lu's last teacher and probably the most profound teacher he had in terms of his impact on Lu. So many of our fellow students over the years were Olympic athletes, rock climbers, lawyers, people with very stressful jobs, people with very precise jobs. We had jewelers and jewelry designers and doll designers, believe it or not. I mean, the kind of the hub that this became, where all these different people from different backgrounds got together and shared this thing, was just incredible. And Lu is right smack in the center of it. And he never put himself above any of us. He was alongside of us. And that's one thing I want to make sure I communicate to anyone that we talk to about this book. He didn't think of himself better or less than any of us. We were all learning alongside each other. And yes, some were more advanced than others, had been studying longer, etc. But it really was like a level setter. It was like it's the most egalitarian of pursuits. This is, doesn't matter where you are, you're together. And that was incredible. And so much to the point where he really just, when he was in class, with his fellow students or with his teachers, we didn't get caught up in any of the bullshit of the music side of things or the star side of things, the celebrity side of things. It was just about us as a collective. And I think he loved that. I think he appreciated that because it was a real conversation. He lived his whole life in public. If you think about it, since he was 22 years old, 23 years old with the Velvet Underground. And so here was this opportunity to just be of the students.
Part of the Sangha.
Exactly. Of a class, of a group. And just really special to see that too. So I shared this video with you guys. This was the Lu Soul Day, the last one we did in New York. And one of the other important things about the book was his other teachers. One of his other, very important teachers was MVYRADIO Rinpoche, his teacher of meditation. And we interviewed him on this video. You'll see that if you watch it somewhere at the beginning of the video. And Lu worked with the best of teachers, right? I mean, he could afford to do that, but he can afford to do that not just from a monetary standpoint, but from a time standpoint. He made the time to do this. So meditation was a really important part of his daily practice. So what other questions? Early, someone has a question. Evelyn does.
Well, Thank you so much. It's very enlightening. I didn't know much about Lou Reed. I was just writing actually in the chat. I didn't know much about Lou Reed beyond Walk on the Wild Side. So to see that he was relating this type of meditative exercise to music was very interesting. I'm taking a little Qigong class here in Brewster, and so I'm kind of familiar with some of the movements and the Qi and the importance of that type of energy. And I just it made me think a lot about him and how difficult it must have been in his work to stay focused because of what seemed like demons going on at the same time. But
Yeah, the chattering monkey. The chattering monkey.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, keeping that at bay. Where is Brewster? Is that in
Brewster's on Cape Cod, down the lower Cape.
I see, okay. Yeah, we have, for some reason I thought it was closer to New York.
Oh, there is a Brewster, New York.
Okay. Because I was gonna say in Brewster, we have a one of our fellow students who's also in the book, a guy, John Miller, who at the time, he's a media executive, an investment executive. He opened a center called Beckoning Path in Armonk, which is not, I don't think it's far from Brewster, New York. But anyway, he's really dedicated that space to meditation and Tai Chi and Qigong. And if anyone lives close enough to Armonk, keep a lookout. He also has an online class to learn Tai Chi with Master Ren and with other teachers called Chi Force. And Chi Force, and you can do online classes, and it's well constructed. And so I share that with you all because if this book inspires you to pursue Tai Chi, that's a great place to start if you're not in New York City learning from Ren directly.
Is there any footage on or YouTube on Lou playing music? Because he said he's putting Tai Chi to music. In the book it said that. Is there some footage to that?
So we did a DVD in 2006 where he composed 7 new songs for this instructional Tai Chi. It's called Power and Serenity. It's a DVD. And if you YouTube Power and Serenity or Lou Reed Tai Chi, you'll see a couple of snippets of it. So you don't even have to buy the DVD. You could just learn it off of YouTube. But he composed the music inspired by his study of Tai Chi. The other thing he did was he took Ren on tour with him, and really he introduced his audience, whether they liked it or not, to Tai Chi and Master Ren. And Master Ren had more or less choreographed, although it's not a dance per se, but he choreographed a form to different songs that different Lou songs. So Perfect Day is another pretty well-known song that he composed from his Transformer album. Ren had done Tai Chi on stage to that, as well as the Velvet Underground song Sunday Morning. So you could see that also on YouTube. And then early next year, there is an album coming out, a reissue of an album called Hudson River Wind Meditation. It's a CD/LP of songs inspired by his study of Tai Chi and meditation that's being reissued. And by Light in the Attic, which is the label imprint. And so you could also access that through Spotify, the original version through Spotify and to any of the music services. So, and one last thing, we had talked to one of his earlier teachers from the 1980s, Master Lung Shum, who in our interview with him said, Lou composed a song about his love of Tai Chi. Well, I was at the archives. If anyone has, by the way, is in New York City, you can go to at Lincoln Center, the New York Public Library of Performing Arts at Lincoln Center, where Lou's archive is. So I was kind of spending time in the archive, and I found the song. We had never heard the song. No one did. He put it away he composed it, recorded it, and put it away in 1984, and we hadn't heard it since then. And I found it, and that's called Open Invitation. And that's also on Spotify, and it's about his early study of Tai Chi.
And we actually just played it at the beginning of, well, we were waiting for people to come in too, if anybody heard it.
Oh,
That's
did you?
the song we were playing. So
Thank you,
good.
Polly. Oh yeah, people love it too because it's a catchy, upbeat song, and no one knows what the lyrics are about, so except Tai Chi people.
And weren't you just like kind of wandering through the archives and happened upon it?
Yes, I literally was probably in hour 6 at the archives just looking for more information, and all of a sudden in my ears, in the headphones, this song, and I heard Tai Chi, and I'm like, what is this? And I immediately texted the Eds, Lori and Jason, who works with Lori, and I said, what is this? They go, we don't know what it is either. So Jason, who helped assemble the archives, started to do some research. He goes, I don't know how we missed this. It was an untitled song. So it felt really cool to find that, but then it gave us a lot of good information for the book. So yeah, really cool.
We have about 5 minutes left if anybody wants to, if there's any other thoughts. So fun to just talk about it and have you here, Scott. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I so appreciate you helping us, Polly, and get the word out. We thank you. And I look forward to sharing with my Eds how this went and tell them how joyful it was, and I appreciate it.
For sure. Please thank them for us.
Will do.
I have a quick question before we go, just briefly, if nobody else has another question, but I was wondering, do you ever feel his presence while you're working with them and Lori? And I know that's kind of a, who knows what happens when we're gone, but like, I wonder, he's such a strong presence. I wonder if any of that's happened.
Lori has a really good answer for that.
Okay.
I think she does, in a profound way.
I bet.
But that's her. Yeah, I don't even know if I could put that to words. I think that's really her. That
Hers to tell. Yeah.
hers to tell, but it's really amazing. And I can only speak from my own experience, and is that he is present. He is present. And I mean, I feel it just in terms of, gosh, it's almost amazing to think that he's been gone for 10 years, and to think that what he missed and how much of what he missed a lot of crap, right? And I think you realize how important a voice like that is when we as a collective are dealing with so much strife, politically, socially, culturally, without getting into politics, just so much divisiveness and polarized, kind of like these forces that are working against each other when in fact we're on the same team. But you realize when a voice like that is gone, how important a voice like that is to help make sense of just certain feelings, and certainly the feelings of being a little bit on the outside looking in. And that was his specialty as a writer. He was so good at communicating for the people on the margins.
So true.
And you just realize through his absence how much you miss someone like that. And that's why I'm amazed. I always love the fact of seeing younger people kind of getting into this. Like my kids are in their 20s, and they knew him, but they have rediscovered him through different bands and different, name checking, bands that say, oh, Lou Reed was my inspiration. But they themselves, they understand it. They understand it, and they understand the spiritual side too, the Tai Chi and the meditative side. They don't see that as an add-on, but as part of who he was. So I just think that's great. I hope more, can only hope that more people kind of tap into it.
For sure. So good.
One last thing I think, so the other way to kind of consume this book also is through the audiobook. And the reason I say that is because I'm on it and my Eds are on it, but then Lori's on it. And it's a great way to kind of consume the book and to read the book, if you will. And you could find it on any of those, I guess Audible is the service. And it's just great when you're driving to and from work or you're on your commute. It's like a long form, it's like a multi-chaptered podcast. So yeah, so and I'll keep you abreast, Polly, of anything new stuff that we're working on. By the way, there is another biography that just was released called The King of New York by Will Hermes. Has anyone read that?
I just saw it in the Times, but I was wondering what's your are you authorizing it? Are you saying what's your take?
I was just curious. I was curious to see if anyone read it.
Not yet.
I'm very close to this subject, so this is hard for me to kind of have a real. I have an opinion about a lot of this stuff. I've read a lot of his biographies. They all kind of go down a very particular path, and very few of them in any way deviate from that story of, it's the story. That's the same story. It's just different versions of it. So it's very well written. It's well written. And gosh, anytime somebody puts the effort to tell someone else's story that way is great. But, if you're interested in Lou Reed and want to read the most recent biography, that is it.
Totally.
Yeah. The King of New York.
Love it.
I gotta ask real quick, is Lori Anderson putting anything out new or doing any projects that we should pay attention to?
Oh, that's a really good question. She is in the midst of, she's doing a film right now. She's working on a film in Europe. She's in Europe now on a mini tour. She's Milan, Prague. Where else did she say she was going? You could Google it. She's on tour right now. She's got 10 different things working at any given time. She did the thing down at the Hirshhorn in DC. This incredible, I hadn't been there, but one of my friends had been there, one of the editors, Stefan. Just kind of a career retrospective at the Hirshhorn that you could see. And then I think she's working on music. She's had a couple of different bands that she has been working with. And then there is a video that was just posted that she just posted from, I want to say it's from the film festival in Milan. She talks about some other projects she's working on, Peter. Yeah, she's always working.
Do something.
Yeah, she's a life force.
Yeah, for sure.
She is.
It's just about 8 o'clock, so I just want to say thank you to everybody, seriously, for showing up tonight. Scott, thank you so much. What a gift. I wanted to,
Polly.
We're next on January 17th, we'll be doing Susan Rogers' book, This Is What It Sounds Like, What the Music You Love Says About You. And it's really good. And she's also going to join us. I spoke with her. She's a professor at Berklee College of Music. She was Prince's sound engineer, and she wrote this about how we listen to music. And our listener profiles and what they say about us. But she started a lab at Berkeley to study how we listen. So it's a really, really cool book. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Polly, one thing I want to add, so related to Susan Rogers, is the Kitchen Sisters. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that podcast on NPR, the Kitchen Sisters.
Mm-mm.
I would look that up. They just did a story about Susan Rogers.
Really?
Yes, they did one. I want to say it was over the summer. They did a beautiful kind of little
Wow.
ear documentary for the ear on Susan Rogers and that book. So check that out. And the
It's
reason
the Kitchen Sisters, it's called?
the Kitchen Sisters, you can
Love
find it in the Apple Podcast library. And
Okay.
the reason I know that we're just about to drop, or the Kitchen Sisters are just about to drop their audio documentary about our book, the making of the book. And I
Oh,
would encourage I had a preview of it the other day. It's it's amazing what they did. So
wow.
it's almost like the making of the book. And I don't know, they recreated it, and it blew me away. Because they had access to all of our recordings. When we interviewed these 90 people or 80 people that we interviewed, we recorded every one of them, and she had access to every one of those, as well as Lou's voice. So
Wow.
yeah, if for those people that are interested, that the Kitchen Sisters, I don't know, I think it's out in the next week or so.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
But there is a Susan Rogers one.
Oh, good. She's amazing. Susan Rogers, my goodness.
I would agree. Amazing.
Looking forward to having her in January.
Will you send me an invite to that? I would love
Yeah,
to
of
attend
course.
that.
I'd love to have you for sure. She said she's
Awesome.
going to be in the studio, but she could take time out. So I thought that was really nice of her.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Oh my gosh. Thank you all so much. And if you would like to be on our mailing list, please put your email in the chat and we will make sure that we keep you abreast of what's going on. Nice shirt, Peter. And just for everybody just showing up on a busy night, it's just, it doesn't get much better. Peace be with you all.
Thank you, Polly. And thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Thank
See you
you.
later. Thanks again. And thanks, Joe.